Welcome to Are You Quizzing Me? I am Vineet Nair with my co-host Aditya Kashyap. This is a quizzing trivia podcast show. Join us as we dive deep into history, science, pop culture, and so much more. Let's get quizzing. And we're back for episode number 83 of Are You Quizzing Me? Your favorite quizzing and trivia podcast show. Aditya and I are back for another round of quizzing, and let's start off today's proceedings with our regular audience question. For those who came in late, this is a question I ask at the beginning of every episode and which I answer at the end of it. The question for this week is, for the first time, a listicle or a connect question, one of Aditya's favorite types of question. I want you, my dear audience, to connect the following people and tell me what is common with all of them. So you have William Shakespeare, poet and playwright, Walter Dimer, inventor of bubblegum, George Machine Gun Kelly, a gangster, King Kamehameha V, the king of Hawaii, Ingrid Bergman, legendary actress, and Milton Glaser, the graphic designer who created the iconic I Love New York logo and co-founded the New York Magazine. This is a non-exhaustive list, and these are some of the most famous entries on the complete list. So I want you to tell me, what do all these people have in common? I will answer this question at the end of today's episode. Coming to our regular quizzing, Aditya, why don't you start us off for this week?
I shall do that. So, starting off, I'm going to give you something you'll probably enjoy. So, something from your interests and field of work.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you about a person, and you're going to identify the person and the relevance they have in the field of medicine today.
Okay.
So, the person in question is X. Was born in 1920, died in 1951. An American lady, an African American woman, lived in the US in the state of Virginia. In 1951, so I'm going to focus some more on her death, she died of cervical cancer. She was a young mother, only 31 years old, of 5. She visited Johns Hopkins Hospital complaining of vaginal bleeding. Upon examination, a renowned gynecologist, Dr. Howard Jones, discovered a large malignant tumor on her cervix. At this point of time, Johns Hopkins Hospital was one of the very few hospitals to treat poor African Americans in the United States of America. Soon thereafter, she began undergoing radium treatment for her cervical cancer. This was the best medical treatment available at the time for that disease. Obviously, it's not used anymore. So this is just a very brief summary of mostly how she passed away at a very young age. Can you tell me what legacy did this lady leave, and if you can guess what her name is? Who am I talking about?
So, Aditya, you're talking about Henrietta Lacks, whose cells currently are being probably the longest continuing cell line, which is used for all sorts of testing. And she was also the subject of a very fantastic book by the name, if I'm not mistaken, it's called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. So her line of cells, which are used for multiple medical applications today, including the study of cancer and for the treatment and study of drugs and many other fields, they were called HeLa cells, or which is short for Henrietta Lacks cells. And there's also quite a lot of controversy going on about patient rights around the use of her tissue for so many decades after her death, because I don't believe she ever gave consent. And one last flex, it's Johns Hopkins Hospital. And there ends my flex.
Well, I stand corrected. Yes, you're right. It is Johns Hopkins Hospital. Yeah, you cracked that very quickly. I think I gave too much of a setup. I should have left it at just name this person X, and I would have not been surprised if you still got it immediately.
No, I mean, like, obviously, even if you hadn't told me medicine, black woman died of cervical cancer at Johns Hopkins, the answer would have been quite obvious.
Yeah, to a man of your interests and your academic background, I would assume.
I am a pathologist after all. Her name is quite familiar to pathologists.
Fair enough. To give reference to some of our listeners who might not be very aware, but I would recommend going and reading. There are multiple great articles covering the impact that she has had, and also the controversies surrounding using her cells, which are the longest, as Vineet said, longest line of cells that are being still used in medical research. One of the most recent applications was in research for vaccines against COVID-19. So, as recently as COVID-19, just a few years ago, the pandemic was partially solved because of Henrietta Lacks. And the problem is, or the controversy is, that for decades after her death, doctors and scientists repeatedly failed to ask her family for consent. And they kept revealing her name publicly, they gave her medical records to the media, even published her cell's genome online. So it was eventually removed following an outcry. The genome was removed. But there is controversy surrounding the use of this woman's legacy. At the same time, cannot deny the impact that it has had and the way it has changed science. So yes, HeLa cells. I was recently introduced to this by a friend of mine who works, or rather has worked, in the genome sequencing lab. And when she first handled HeLa cells, she felt like she was part of some storied legacy. And I can imagine how that must
Mhm.
feel. Vineet, have you ever handled any HeLa cells?
No, no. I work in the diagnostic part of the industry, not in the research part. The research section of the medical industries, they are the ones who come into contact with us and use this line of cells made.
Fair enough. Well, Vineet, that was an easy one. That was a softball for you. So, your turn. Hit me with your question.
Yes. And I don't remember the name of the author, but there is a very good book by the name The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which also I would recommend. So, moving on from something which I would be very familiar to something that maybe you should be very familiar with.
All right.
I'm nailing segues right now. The exact origins of X as we know it are disputed, though it's broadly thought to be from West Asia. It's known by different names such as Meshbek in Egypt, Zulbia in Iran, and Jerry in Nepal. Y looks very similar to X, though there are marked differences between the two. For example, Y is thicker than X and is usually shaped differently too. The oldest surviving shop selling Y is Benirams, located in Jaunpur. I want you to identify what X and Y are.
Very interesting. I was initially thinking, since you mentioned the Middle East, for some reason my mind went to carpets,
Oh, okay.
a stereotype as it might be. But now that you said Benny Rams, it makes me think of Haldirams, and I'm thinking this has to be some Middle Eastern inspired dessert, or some sweet dish that we're talking about.
You're half right.
Okay, half right. Interesting. And you're not going to tell me which half, I imagine.
No.
Okay. Tell me the names again. What were the names that they were referred to as?
It's like a common ancestry thing. Let me just clarify that. So we have a common ancestor, like we are not descended from monkeys, right? Monkeys and humans have a common ancestor. Similarly, there is a common kind of origin to this particular X and many versions of it which are available in Middle East and West Asia, some of which are called Meshbek in Egypt, Zulbia in Iran, and Jerry in Nepal. Now, Y is very similar to X. It looks very similar. So I said you could mistake X for Y or Y for X. However, there are marked differences between the two. Y is thicker than X, usually shaped differently, and the oldest surviving shop selling Y is Benirams, located in Jaunpur.
Zulbia
Mm-hmm.
takes me to jalebi. And you said Jerry as well. So Jerry, Zulbia, I'm going jalebi on that,
Aha, okay.
which means Y has to be an Imarti.
Haha.
So X is jalebi and Y is Imarti.
My clue to you was going to be the first episode of the Indian version of The Night Manager.
Oh, right. Yes, yes.
A plot point in that, for I don't know what reason, the protagonist comes in contact with a young girl who's about to be married off to an older gentleman, and the young girl keeps asking for an imarti,
Hmm.
which I found was a weird plot point. So you cracked that again quite quickly, as I was expecting. It is indeed the
Hmm.
jalebi and the imarti. They look very similar, but their origins are different. And people who've had them, I'm told, are quite militant about their differences and will not accept imartis being called jalebis. Though I myself am not in that particular category. Since it is from your neck of the woods, your hometown, what's your opinion, Aditya?
I remember being a very young child and going to Lucknow to visit my grandparents and my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who I used to call Baba. Baba would buy jalebis for us, for me and my cousins, so for all his kids.
Oh.
And I could not for my life remember the name. So I used to call it garam biscuit. So it was just a hot biscuit, a garam biscuit, because it was crunchy and it was nice. And I used to always ask Baba for garam biscuit. So garam biscuit became a thing that even today my parents, you know how parents have this thing where they refer to things that you did as a child and assume that you're going to still be the same. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm 31
exactly.
years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
Don't call jalebi garam biscuit anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, my parents still are like, oh, would you like some garam biscuit?
Hmm. No, that was kind of a twist in the tale because when you started off your story talking about your grandfather taking you to Lucknow, I was, oh, okay, so then that must be his first exposure to Imrti. But no, it turned out to be jalebi.
My grandfather was biased towards jalebi. I have to admit, though,
Oh.
at this age, right now, currently, I'm much more of an Imarti person. And yes, they are different, Vineet. I can't abide by you saying that they are the same. No, texture matters. This like
I'm not saying they're the same, but it's like, they're too close to be for you to kind of think they're like, okay, they're completely different. But again, let's not get into that. I can see Aditya's brow furrowing. He's getting ready for a long discussion, and we don't have the time to edit anything more. So let's just keep out of it.
fine. You know what? I'll grant you that. We will leave this as it is. But I must say, if Charles Darwin had tried to explain evolution by saying, you know how Imarti and Jalebi have a common ancestor? That's how human beings and monkeys are.
Yeah.
I loved how you use that to explain common ancestor. Monkeys and human beings, jalebis and Imartis, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so from this case of mistaken identity, I'm
Okay.
gonna ask you a question about when that actually happened to human beings and not to desserts. So, this is a story of 2002 in the town of Lauderhill in Florida, in the United States of America. X was invited to be the keynote speaker at the MLK Day celebration, at the Martin Luther King Day celebration. To express their appreciation for X, the town worked with a local company to have a plaque made that thanked him for, and here I'm quoting, keeping the dream alive. The plaque featured images of special edition US stamps that honored black men and women, including Harriet Tubman, poet Paul Dunbar, and Martin Luther King Jr. himself. It would have been a lovely tribute to this distinguished and accomplished gentleman X on a very solemn occasion, except, and that's why it's featured on a trivia podcast, somebody messed up and messed up so hard because they messed up the last name of this person. And instead of being a tribute on MLK, it almost became an insult on MLK Day, especially. Do you know what mistake was made and who X is?
Wow. Okay. I have no clue. So you're talking about somebody who was going to be a guest and they were being honored for keeping the dream alive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's a reference to MLK's famous speech, I have a dream. Person would be judged by the content of his character, not by the color of his skin.
Right.
This would probably be somebody who's done a lot for civil rights.
In a way, as would have been obvious by now, X is a black man, is a black individual,
Yeah.
and he did a lot in his field to sort of gain recognition for the black people in that particular industry. So I don't know if he specifically would today be remembered as a social activist, but whatever he did in whatever field he did, that had a large and varied social impact. So yes, in a way, he did cause great social change.
I don't know why, but Denzel Washington comes to mind.
Phenomenal, because you have narrowed it down to the right industry. It is an actor that I speak of, but no, Denzel is not the right answer.
Okay, so then the other black artists, okay, say 2002, which means that that person's legacy would have stretched a little further back in the 70s and 80s. So then my next guess again would be Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier, again, a very famous black actor, did a lot to establish the black man in Hollywood and break the tropes that were associated with black actors. But no, in this case, we're not talking about Sidney Poitier either. Good guess, though.
Okay.
I would recommend focusing on the second half of the question, which spoke about how the person who messed up, the person who was given the task of designing the plaque, who messed up specifically by ruining the last name of this person. So I'll give you a further clue. It's a 3-word name.
Samuel L. Jackson.
It isn't Samuel L. Jackson either.
Oh, okay. Now this is getting interesting.
And here I'll have to point you to the fact that when he messed up the last name of this person, it, instead of being a tribute on MLK Day, it became quite the insult on MLK Day specifically, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day specifically.
Oh, God. Actor, African American actor, 3-word name, and the last name was. Okay, just off a tangent, just to remind me, what was the name of the assassin who shot Martin Luther King?
That's the crack right there.
It was some Lee, right?
No, I think you're thinking Lee Harvey Oswald.
No. Okay, Lee Harvey Oswald. It's it's on the back of my head. James Earl Jones.
Oh, Vineet, well done, well done. That is the right answer. So, James Earl Jones, the phenomenal, the talented, the
Mufasa.
Mufasa and Darth Vader and every great voice that you've ever heard in a Hollywood film belongs to James Earl Jones. And that is the individual I talk of, because James Earl Jones was supposed to be honored in 2002 in Florida, and the town designed the plaque. And oh my God, how do you mess up so bad? Because instead of writing James Earl Jones, they wrote James Earl Ray, who was the assassin of Martin Luther King. So it is
Oh, God.
quite the insult on MLK Day to be giving a plaque honoring somebody for keeping the dream alive. Like the word choices are also so.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it does not reflect well. So keeping the dream alive, it was James Earl Jones. Instead, it said James Earl Ray. To his credit, James Earl Jones took it in his stride, and it was eventually corrected, and the right name was put in its place. The reason that I came across this piece of trivia, as so many of you might know, James Earl Jones recently passed away. Some lovely tributes came his
Yeah.
way from actors who worked with him. I particularly liked Mark Hamill's tribute, where he said something along the lines of "Goodbye, Dad." Mark Hamill having played Luke Skywalker, and James Earl Jones played Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker.
Wow. That is a goof up of gargantuan proportions.
Yeah.
But let's move from one goof up to a not so goof up.
That is pushing it as a segue.
And I'm sticking to it. This is not a goof up.
Okay, all right.
So you must have heard of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17. It was a scheduled flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur that was shot down by Russian-controlled forces on 17th July 2014 while flying over eastern Ukraine. See, I told you. Not a goof up.
Not a goof up, yeah.
Due to the challenging conditions and the needs for preservation of the bodies of the people who died in the crash, formaldehyde, a preservative, was used to slow down decomposition and to prevent rapid deterioration of the bodies. However, there was a flip side to that. Since formaldehyde can break down DNA, as it did, it made it difficult for DNA matching and identification of the bodies.
Okay.
In a tremendous feat, scientists were fortunately able to identify the remains of 294 of the 298 victims by 2014 and 296 out of 298 by 2016. This was due to a state-of-the-art victim identification program called X.
Okay.
The reason behind the name is that in the Kingdom of Holland, circa 1811, X was instrumental in formally introducing the use of the first and last names by establishing the registry office. Essentially, he played a pivotal role in the way people are identified by their names. In a similar way, X, the program, aims to give back names to unidentified individuals through DNA identification. So, tell me what the name of this victim identification program is, which is based off a real life person's name.
I'm assuming this person is famous, and I would have heard of this person.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, interesting. And this person is Dutch, right? You said Kingdom of Holland.
Yes, so this person did this in the Kingdom of Holland roughly around 1811.
1811, somebody who lived the Kingdom of Holland. Oh boy, that's nope, nothing immediately comes to mind. So could you repeat what were they known for? Like what did they manage to achieve? Something to do with the first names and last names, right?
Yeah, this X basically established a registry office in Holland, which was the first of its kind. And that was where people were officially identified on paper using first and last names. I will talk a little bit about there's another bit of trivia about first and last names and how people have been identified over the years. But let's just say that the official use of that in Europe, of having a registry with people being identified by their first and last names, was first done and established by X in around 1811.
Okay.
So, honoring that, this victim identification program came to be called X.
Hmm. You did mention, or rather, you conspicuously didn't mention that it's a Dutch person. So I'm assuming it's not a Dutch person.
I can tell you something.
Uh-huh.
X's brother
Uh-huh.
was King of Holland in 1806.
You say that as if I know the European ancestry of all the monarchs. So, no, I don't know who this person is, but I'm assuming X is not Dutch, but happened to be doing whatever he did in Kingdom of Holland in 1811.
Yeah.
1811, somebody who would have been involved with registries with first names and last names. That's very out of the left field. I have no clue whatsoever. No.
Okay, I did tell you there was a clue that X's brother
Mm-hmm.
was King of Holland, but you would know X more as a military man.
Oh, okay. So, oh, wow. Yeah, I was thinking some sort of bureaucrat. That's why I was a bit confused. But if you say that he himself was a military man and related to royalty, I'm assuming he was a general royal himself. So, famous royalty of that time, it's either a British king, and I can't for my life remember who was the king in 1811.
I could probably tell you that.
You know what? I'm not surprised. Yeah, why even?
Bridgerton.
That I did not expect. I would have completely given you points for, oh, I read that in some research I did many years ago. But
Yeah, no,
Bridgerton,
I read Julia Quinn's novels, the entire Bridgerton series, long before it was a twinkle in Shonda Rhimes' eye, because it was exceptional writing. Unlike the TV series itself, the books have some exceptional writing. And so it's set during the Regency period.
that's more the Vineet I know,
Yeah.
who has read Bridgerton more than he has watched Bridgerton.
Once you read Bridgerton, you'd not be such a huge fan of the show, Frank. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to our question.
Question. So I'm assuming it's not the English monarch of the time,
No.
which leads me to early 1800s would probably have to be Napoleon.
Yes, and you'd be right. So the program
Ah.
is called Bonaparte, after Napoleon Bonaparte. Because when Napoleon, obviously part of his, how do I put this, expansionist colonial enterprise, he had also been involved in taking over a lot of Holland as well. So when he came, Napoleon brought an entire new bureaucracy with him. And that established the first registry office with a civil registration of births, marriages, and deaths. And more specifically, as I mentioned, in 1811, the format of identifying people by their first and last name. He actually put out a royal instruction in 1811 obliging those without a surname to choose one.
Hmm.
And that's why surnames are more standard today.
Okay, interesting.
There's also something really surprising in another fact is that do you know what was actually mostly responsible for, at least in the Western speaking world, for people to start using a surname?
I would imagine inheritance of some sort would
No. So
probably.
apparently now this I have read this in a couple of places, but I don't have any authoritative resources, but it does make sense. So apparently the main cause for that was the Black Death.
You know what? That's the answer usually. Like if you ask me, I should just get. That was going to be my second guess. It has to be the Black Death. It has to be the bubonic plague.
The reason why it's the Black Death is what's really surprising. So let's take pre the plague, the Black Death or the bubonic plague, which
Mhm.
ravaged Europe. So pre the Black Plague, most people grew up, they were born, grew up, married, lived, and died in the same village.
Okay.
So they never ever actually had to have an identification beyond a first name.
Mm-hmm.
They're Jack, they're Jack. If they're John, they're John. If they're Henry, they're Henry. If they're Pierre, they're Pierre. That's
Mm.
it. That's all that was required. But after the Black Plague decimated the population of Europe and England and a lot of those European countries,
Mm-hmm.
skilled labor and skilled workers became a little scarce. So people started
Mm.
actually, because of demand, going outside their villages.
Ah, okay.
So when they go to a new village, they may no longer be the Pierre or that everybody knows. So they would have to they adopt or basically call themselves something by that name. So many times what happened was they would call themselves by their profession.
Mm.
Hence the names Fletcher, Archer, Mason, Schneider in German means tailor. So all these names became
Mm.
points of identification when people started moving around between villages because of skilled work that they had to perform.
Mm.
Until then, if you were a John born in Breckenridge, you'd be John of Breckenridge for God knows how long.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, Graham, so because of this particular registry, which was due to a royal decree by Bonaparte in 1811,
Mm-hmm.
the program that was used to identify victims is using DNA was also called Bonaparte.
Okay. Very interesting trivia. I love that. And Napoleon, that man did a lot. Short king as he was, or actually wasn't, but
He was of average height, above average height,
yeah,
actually.
above average height. Yeah.
The entire short complex thing was something his enemies put out.
Because the French inch is longer than the English inch, and hence,
Yeah.
measured in French inches, he would have come out to be sounding shorter when that number would be translated to English.
And there was also an active smear campaign to make him seem less than who he was. And you know what they say, a lie can go around the world before the truth has enough time to put on its boots.
Fair enough. It's ironic because the man himself spearheaded the whole standardization of units. The one thing that tore him apart, or, well, tore him down, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Moving from somebody who was quite prominent and is a name that will probably be remembered for a while to come, let's move to something which probably would not be, or people who would not be remembered or are not usually remembered. And I'm going to
Okay.
give you a list of such
Oh, I hate you.
people, and you are going to tell me what this list is about. Come
I
on,
hate you.
Vineet. Look
I hate
happier.
you. No.
Okay. So we're going to start with a couple of professions. The first one is a gambler. The second one is a policeman. Third one, innkeeper. And then doctor, we have merchant, we have a weaver, a blacksmith, and a worker. A worker could be a farmer as well. So let me repeat that again. A gambler, a city guard, innkeeper, doctor, merchant, weaver, blacksmith, or farmer. What is this exhaustive list of?
These were, if I'm not mistaken, a medieval attempt to make chess interesting.
Come on, that is not cool. That is not, no. Stop talking now. Stop talking. Let's just stop talking. That is just, that's unfair.
I finally get one of your lists on the first try.
Henrietta Lacks was fine because I knew you'll get that immediately. But this, how did you crack this? Oh
I
my
knew this
God,
one.
Vineet.
A long time ago, I actually made a quiz where I had like visual connects, going through a master connect throughout the quiz itself. So there were 8 such slides, and each slide had multiple pictures in it, which would point to one particular profession. So one, you would have the merchant. I had a picture of the Merchant of Venice and things like that. And then for the innkeeper, I had the movie Innkeeper and a few things like that.
Interesting.
So I had to put all of that together to get the master connected. Yeah, so I know this one. This one was, quite easy. Yeah.
All right. Fine. Make short order of my questions. So
I believe the
mercilessly.
term is checkmate.
I will take it, Shamat. I'll take it. Yeah. All right, Vineet, your question.
Okay, so moving on from soldiers who were given professions to another soldier about who you may or may not have heard. Donnie Dunnigan was born in San Antonio, Texas, but his family soon moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where they struggled with poverty. He soon became the primary breadwinner of his family by the age of 8. By 13, Dunnigan was living in a boarding house and worked as a lathe operator. In 1952, at the age of 18, he enlisted in the Marine Corps. He became the youngest drill instructor in the history of the Marine Corps, served 3 tours in Vietnam, where he was wounded several times before finally retiring with the rank of major in 1977. For Dunnigan's service, he received a Bronze Star and 3 Purple Hearts. However, Dunnigan kept a secret while serving in the Marines, which was eventually found out shortly before his retirement. This secret is his claim to fame. What did Donnie Dunnigan do that has him permanently etched in the history of art and culture?
Oh, interesting. This is a real person, I'm assuming.
This is a real person, a very real person, yes.
Okay.
He
Hmm.
did something that made him very famous, but he kept it a secret. So much so that they only came to know about it, his colleagues, people around him, only near his retirement. And it's not like he was a low profile person. He was the youngest drill instructor in the entire Marine Corps.
That is impressive. And he still had something else more than that to claim to fame.
A much bigger claim to fame.
Very interesting. Being related to somebody famous would not probably be that important.
No.
So he himself has done something big. Oh, then I would assume some sort of an actor. So did he appear in some movie, in some famous movie, acted in some famous movie?
Oh, you're very close.
Okay. And this would have to be before he joined the Marine Corps, which means he would have been a child actor. And you mentioned he served in Vietnam. So we're talking like
Yes.
a child actor in the 50s, 60s, somewhere around that time. 60s, because he was very young when he went to Vietnam.
Let me just put it out there again, one portion of the question, that
Hmm.
it was at the age of 18, he enlisted in the Marine Corps in
Uh-huh.
1952.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Oh, I don't know why I messed that up. Okay. So he served in Vietnam later in his life. Got it.
Yes, yes.
Hmm. 52. That means the 1934. So he was born somewhere in 1934, 1935, whatever. Child actor in the 30s, 40s. Gone with the Wind was before that, right? I don't think that this could have been Gone with the Wind.
It's not Gone with the Wind. I'll give you one additional clue. You are
Hmm.
very close with when you said movie, and so I would point you towards an adaptation of Felix Salten's 1923 novel.
An adaptation of a novel by an author I've not heard of. That does not help me at all, Vinny. Thank you so much.
I aim to please.
Okay. Yeah, no, some other clue perhaps. I can't think of any movie in that period. Oh, ooh, was this? No, that's also much earlier, right? I was going to say Charlie Chaplin and the Kid, the movie The Kid, but
Oh, very good guess. Very good guess, but no.
but that's also much earlier, yeah. So, I can't think of any child actor that I would know off the top of my head right now, or any movie famous enough like that. Was it Citizen Kane? The guy who played young Citizen Kane.
No, no, it's not. It's not. Citizen Kane was in the 50s, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so that child is also like a young teenager, right? Like playing, but yeah, again, 50s would have been too late for him.
Not Citizen Kane.
I was so sure.
I can tell you that you remember AFI, the American Film Institute, had presented its 10 top 10 in each
Hmm.
genre.
Hmm.
So it gave them
Hmm.
top 10 movies in each genre. This movie
Hmm.
placed third in one particular genre.
Doesn't help me because I am not anywhere close to even identifying what genre it would be.
I'll give you one more clue. This was nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Sound, Best Song, and Original Music Score. And it was announced in January 2020 that a remake is on its way.
Oh, before you said the remake thing, I was going to say something like Sound of Music or something. But now that you said
No.
remake, it makes me think of a Disney film. Disney has had done this with the live action stuff so much, so I can't remember which exact film, but I remember there was some. 19, we're talking 1930s, 1940s. It has to be. Ooh, is it Bambi?
Yes, Donnie Dunnigan was the voice of young Bambi in Bambi. This macho man, the soldier, youngest drill instructor in the history of the Marine Corps, who had did 3 tours in Vietnam, retired as a major with a Bronze Star and 3 Purple Hearts. Obviously, he kept it
Hmm.
a secret that he was the voice of young Bambi.
Very cool. That is very interesting.
He also did a few other roles. The one I found most interesting was also that he was known for portraying the young son of Baron Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Done a bunch of things. Impressive. By the way, this is just a follow up to the previous question. I guess I should have mentioned it then. But all the 8 professions I mentioned them in the order that they are placed on the chessboard. So these are the pawns, and I started from the left, which was the gambler, and then came city guard, which would be in front of the knight, left side knight, and then the innkeeper in front of the left side bishop, doctor in front of the queen, merchant in front of the king, weaver in front of the right side bishop, blacksmith in front of the right side knight, and worker or farmer in front of the right side rook, which is all interesting in and of itself. What is the most interesting was gambler or the low lives, which were the leftmost, was also the direction that was literally sinister.
Yeah, because Sinistra is Latin for left.
Exactly. If you know the etymology, as Vineet said, sinistra is the Latin for left. So gamblers were all the way in the left. I thought that was worth mentioning because I forgot to mention it earlier. And I have to give it to you, Vineet. I would not have guessed that the voice of Bambi was this interesting person who managed to achieve so much else in life. Very cool. This reminds me, do you know that the voice of Simba, and again, James Earl Jones, who played Mufasa, so relevant to 2 questions today. The voice of Simba, I believe his mother, that young child's mother, managed to negotiate a payment which was a percentage of profits. And at this point of time, Disney did not anticipate it being a big hit because it was competing with some other big Disney film. I believe Aladdin or something was coming out at the same time. So they thought Lion King would be one of those B films, like Disney used to do, like a major.
Yeah, like a director video. It'll have a lot of video sales.
Exactly. So they managed to negotiate some sort of royalty based system for the little kid
Wow.
who played Simba. That guy has been rolling in money since then just because his mom was a very, very smart lady. I've read this somewhere, worth verifying in case you're interested. But yeah, that was a random piece of trivia. Okay, fun question. I have to move from somebody who has traveled the world and done very interesting things to people who are doing that today in the current day and age. And these are tourists. Hey, don't give me that look. My segues are as good as yours.
If you say so, let's the audience decide.
All right. I shall not compete. The question is that there are tourists these days who are traveling to various cities and countries with the specific purpose of visiting locations of TV shows or movies that they have admired, which were shot in those locations. This has been the case for many, many years, obviously in the past as well. But it has definitely taken off much more recently, simply because obviously people are watching a lot more content and the use of a lot more locations, real locations rather than just sound stages, has made it interesting to go and explore these places. Shows like The Crown, All Creatures Great and Small, Ted Lasso, all of these have had fans visiting and all these locations. And there is anticipation where Warner Brothers will choose to shoot the new TV adaptation of the Harry Potter novels. They're already casting for that.
Hmm?
So people are excited about all of this. Which brings me to the question, what is this particular trend given the name of?
I knew you'd ask that. I'm fairly sure it's a pun of some sort, and you're going to watch me flounder.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'm guessing it'll be something tourism.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not. Oh, okay. Because usually you have like dark tourism and sex tourism and lots of other
And
kind of.
medical tourism, yes, but no, it's.
No, it's not. Okay. It's going to be something clever, isn't it? I hate you. Hmm. What could they call it? TV, something like train spotting, TV spotting, or something like
I love the way your brain works. It is just so random sometimes. Last time you guessed 12 monkeys and you went with that.
that.
Today it went to train spotting, TV spotting. No, it's actually much simpler. It is a phrase that is very commonly associated, or rather, it is derived from a phrase which is very commonly associated with traveling or going somewhere or packing your bags and leaving. So that's the phrase that I would recommend you think of. And then just a little bit of a wordplay on that phrase will get you to the answer.
Okay. Getting up and going. I have no clue right now. Just blank.
I don't know. Let me try to use it in a sentence without giving it away completely. A
Okay.
frequent flyer might be dash across the globe all the time.
Globe trotting.
No, no, no. Think of something which rhymes. So, 3-letter word paired with another 3-letter word which rhymes.
Oh God. Jet setting.
Yeah, and there's a pun on that. Find the pun, Vineet. You got this.
Oh God, I hate you. You and your puns. Okay, a jet setting. Uh, set setting? No, TV setting.
Almost there, almost there, almost there. You got it almost there in the first try.
Wait, I got set setting.
Close enough. You know what, Vineet? I'll put you out of your misery.
Set jetting.
Set jetting. That's right. You got that. Well done, well done. It is set jetting, yes. Jet setting, as it's known. A pun on that is set jetting, and that is the phrase that is used to describe this tourism that is happening across the world, especially in UK and Europe, where people are going to visit locations where famous TV shows and movies have been filmed. So they were going to visit the sets of these TV shows and movies. So it
Mhm.
is set jetting. That's where you get that phrase from. I thought this was a cool phrase. I need it obviously included in our trivia. So, Vineet, you have cracked your first pun question. I must give it to you.
Yay!
Yeah, you are quite the pundit now. All right.
Okay. Moving from one pundit to maybe another pundit.
All right.
Okay, so Supremo is a comic book character published in the 1980s. It was created by Pammi Bakshi, editor of Movie Magazine, who developed the series for her magazine's publisher, India Book House, under their imprint Star Comics. In the comics, Supremo was an alter ego of X. As described in a contemporary article in the India magazine, Supremo conceals his identity by wearing large glasses which resemble welding glasses, a skin tight costume with a wrap which resembles those worn by fishermen on India's western coast, and a chakra pendant. He loves peanuts. Music is his passion, which is why he carries a Walkman. And Supremo has two helpers, boys named Vijay and Anthony. He also has a dolphin named Sonali and a falcon scout Shaheen. So my question is, identify X, and can you tell me who was the first writer of Supremo stories?
What? I've never even heard of this character. Okay. So, Supremo is the name of the character, and you're asking me who is
So in the
the.
comics, Supremo was the alter ego of X.
Yeah, got it. So, you're asking me who the, whatever, the other version of Supremo is.
Yeah, so for example, Superman is the alter ego of Clark Kent, or rather the other way around, I think.
Fair enough. And that actually was an example that was relevant, unlike monkeys and
Hey,
human beings.
that was very relevant.
Okay,
I
okay.
stick by my example.
It was entertaining, I'll give you that. Okay, but you said Supremo wears large glasses?
Yes. So Supremo conceals his identity by wearing large glasses which resemble welding glasses. He wears a skin typed costume with a wrap which resembles those worn by fishermen on India's western coast, and has a chakra pendant. He loves peanuts. Music is his passion, which is why he carries a Walkman. And Suprema has two helpers, boys named Vijay and Anthony. He also has a dolphin named Sonali and a falcon scout Shaheen.
You did stress on Vijay and Anthony. So I'm assuming that has something to do with the alter ego that I'm supposed to guess. I was going to try to guess some fictional character, but now I'm thinking Vijay and Anthony. Is it some character that Amitabh Bachchan has played, some Vijay he has played, or is it Amitabh Bachchan himself or something like that?
So you have cracked X. Supremo was supposed to be the alter ego of Amitabh Bachchan.
Ah,
As if
okay.
he didn't have enough going on in his life, they also made him a superhero in his spare time. So yes, the alter ego of Supremo was Amitabh Bachchan, which is very workoutable. But
Mhm.
The next part of the question is, who's the first writer of Supremo stories?
Oh, interesting. My first guess has to be something either Salim Khan or Javed Akhtar, simply because I watched, as in the previous episode I mentioned, Angry Young Men, the story of Salim Javed. So is it either of them?
No, it's not.
Okay. Somebody who was a writer, who still is a writer. Hmm. Do we have a time frame of when these comics were published and
1980s.
1980s? No, yeah, I can't think of anybody who would make sense.
Fair enough. There haven't been any clues in this. So I will give you a little brief on this person.
Okay.
So this person, the writer, is known to be a lyricist, a poet, an author, screenwriter, film director, and film producer. They have been awarded with the Sahitya Academy Award, the Padma Bhushan, a Dada Saheb Phalke Award, a Jnana Peeth Award, which is India's highest literary award, alongside a Grammy and an Academy Award.
Huh? An Academy Award?
Yes.
Wait, is this an honorary Academy Award or is it a.
No, not an honorary one. They actually won it.
This person has won an Academy Award, is a lyricist, producer, director. What? An Indian. So, wait, is it an Indian person? Then am I. It's just not an Indian person then.
I think you should work it out, flounder a little more before I give you any more clues.
Come on, that's not really that big a clue. Oh, but wait, you said this person has also won the Padma Bhushan, and that is only given to Indians. What? Some Indian who has won an Oscar is a lyricist, a writer, a director,
Yes. And a Grammy as well. Don't forget the Grammy.
and a Grammy. What did?
Yes, and the Dada Saheb Phalke Award. And the Jnana Peeth Award, which is the India's highest literary award.
Okay. What? How do I not know who this Indian man who is Indian man? I'm assuming, but
You definitely know them.
I would have guessed Satyajit Ray or something, but Satyajit Ray only won an honorary Academy Award.
He's also won 6 National Film Awards and 22 Filmfare Awards.
Sure, those make sense. It's the Academy Award that is tripping me up. Wow, Academy Award. When did this person win the Academy Award? I think that's the only way that I'm going to get this.
The 2010s.
2010s, who won an Academy Award? Vineet, what are you saying? Who in 2010 won an Academy Award?
2000, sorry, not the 2010s, 2000s.
Oh, Jesus Christ, you're going to get just like
Yeah, I'm sorry. That my bad. It was the 2000s.
identity crisis. I was like, what happened in the decade that I was so blanked out? 2000s, then that means this has to be Slumdog Millionaire, which means who was the music? This can't be A.R. Rahman.
It's not A.R. Rahman. No, A.R. Rahman is never winning a Jnana Peeth Award.
Yeah, I was just going to say, not a literary award, literature award is not coming A.R. Rahman's way. Oh my God, is it Gulzar?
Yes, it is Gulzar. Finally, you got there.
Oh God, completely forgot Gulzar won an Academy Award. That's right, yeah.
He also won a Grammy.
And a Grammy, yes, of course, yeah.
I mean, like that. This has to be the most impressive kind of award list of any Indian media personality. I believe. Like nobody can. The breadth and depth of his awards are like just fascinating. So, coming back to the question, I'll give you a little more history on this fascinating piece of history. So, Supremo is an Indian comic book character in the series called The Adventures of Amitabh Bachchan, which was published in the 1980s. It was obviously based on the actor Amitabh Bachchan, created by Pami Bakshi, as I already mentioned. In an interview, Pami Bakshi stated that the name Supremo came from actor Randhir Kapoor's tag for Superstar Bachchan. Randhir Kapoor apparently used to call Amitabh Bachchan Supremo. Bakshi stated that she roped in writer-director Gulzar as a consultant and for the character design approached Pratap Malik, then an illustrator for Amar Chitra Katha. According to the same interview, the series was written mostly by Sudha Chopra and freelance writers. However, the initial comic books were written by Gulzar. In the comics, Supremo was an alter ego of Amitabh Bachchan. He also had a dolphin named Sonali and a falcon scout Shaheen, inspired by the bird in Bachchan's film Coolie.
Ah, okay.
Amitabh Bachchan had a superhero who was supposed to be, I don't know, his alter ego. I'm not sure if that's insanely narcissistic, or if this was a huge amount of sycophancy on the part of this magazine and production house.
Listen, anybody who decides to pursue acting is already a vain, insecure megalomaniac, and I say this with all the humility of being one of them.
You realize that was like, that's a contradiction in itself. You can't say that with humility if you are a megalomaniac.
And that's how you know you're talking to an actor, just full of contradictions. Okay, lovely. No, that is a pretty cool piece of trivia. You know what? I was also going to guess before you mentioned the 80s, I was going to say Shashi Tharoor because we have spoken about Shashi Tharoor and the
Oh,
book he
yeah,
wrote,
yeah.
which featured Amitabh Bachchan. But yeah, Shashi Tharoor, I don't think was writing books in the
Mm.
80s. Very cool, though. That's a lovely piece of trivia. I enjoyed that very much. And I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
Yes, that is the last question for today's episode. And I will now move on to the audience question, which I had asked at the beginning of the episode, which was a connect list. What connects the following people, which it's not an exhaustive list? William Shakespeare, you know who he is. Walter Dimer, who was the inventor of bubblegum. George Machine Gun Kelly, who was a gangster. King Kamehameha the Fifth, King of Hawaii. Ingrid Bergman, who's a legendary actress. Milton Glaser, who's the graphic designer who created the iconic I Love New York logo and who also co founded New York Magazine. So these are some of the most famous entries in a non exhaustive list. Can you tell me what connect these people?
Because of these few names, it was Machine Gun Kelly and William Shakespeare specifically. I was thinking like artists have been inspired by the names and like use them as alter egos themselves or like whatever
No,
as pen
no,
names.
Kamehameha then wouldn't fit that particular category, nor would Milton Glaser.
True. I was thinking like a Machine Gun Kelly and Will I Am and
No, no, very good idea, but no.
interesting. Any hint?
I came to this through somewhat an indirect fashion because I was reading about a specific effect and a statistical phenomenon, which is what led me to this list, and which is now your question that you're listening to.
There's a Ingrid Bergman as well that you mentioned in this list.
Yes.
Is it by any chance? But again, Ingrid Bergman probably doesn't fit the bill. But is it by any chance the things that are attributed to this person, the works by this person, or whatever they've achieved or they've done, is so vast that people assume that it wasn't one person but a group of people? Because
No,
I know
not.
there's that conspiracy theory about Shakespeare.
So I will give the answer to this. So these are all people who died on their birthdays.
Ah, very interesting. No, that is interesting. I'll give you
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
So the reason I came to this particular question was because of something called the birthday effect, also called the birthday blues. Have you heard about this?
and no, I have not.
Okay, so it's called the birthday effect, and it's a statistical phenomenon where the chances of a person's death is higher on or close to their birthday. This has been seen in studies conducted in England and Wales, Switzerland, Ukraine, and the US. It was even studied within Major League Baseball players. Some studies find that men and women, both mortality rates are higher near their birthdays. Other studies do not
Hmm.
find that gender affects high death rates around birthdays. However, some studies found that women were more likely to die right before a birthday and men were more likely to die right after. Some reasons for people dying near or on their birthdays are said to be related to alcohol, stress, or terminally ill patients trying to stay alive until their birthday. Another cause could be a yearly cycle similar to the circadian rhythm that causes the body to weaken. So, there is such a thing as the birthday effect, which also kind of buttresses my personal belief that you shouldn't be celebrating birthdays. Why would you want to celebrate getting 1 year closer to death? Makes no sense.
What's up, Vineet? All
This
good?
has actually happened. This is a true story. I've actually forgotten my own birthday. This happened once where I completely forgot that it was my birthday and was reminded of it only when I came back from work. And my mother called as usual. She had called me in the morning. I'd missed her call. I was working in a government hospital at the time. I went to the hospital, was busy throughout the day. Came back in the evening, and my mom called again, and she was like, "Why aren't you picking up my calls? It's your birthday." And I was like, "Oh, right." So I'm one of those people. I don't like my birthday. I don't. It's not because it's my birthday. I just don't like birthdays in general.
This is gonna out us as two big nerds because I forgot my birthday once and you were at work and I was, this is back in school, and it was, so I didn't forget it for the whole day, but I forgot for a couple of hours because I was up late at night till like whatever 2 3 a.m. and I was doing math questions.
Oh, man after my own heart.
I just got my hands on the latest textbook that was whatever for that year, and I was very excited to solve this book. So I just started and I couldn't stop. And I remember because it was a very low key affair, I was going to celebrate it the next day, perhaps. I had some plans the next day, but that particular night I completely forgot. And at 3 a.m., my mom woke up or my dad woke up to go pee. And they see that I'm up and they're like, oh, by the way, happy birthday. I'm like, oh, yeah, it is my birthday. It's been my birthday for the last few hours.
Nice, nice.
So, yeah, we both are peas in a pod. Definitely interesting. Very interesting question. I'll give you that.
Great. What is your pop culture recommendation for today, Aditya?
I discovered a podcast on YouTube, which I must recommend to everybody. It's a lovely trivia podcast hosted by two Indian men. It's a really fun thing that anybody should check out. It's called Are You Quizzing Me? So go check that
I
out.
think we've got like one episode out.
I uploaded all the episodes, Vineet. All the episodes are out on YouTube now.
Okay, nice, 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 very nice.
Because I was hanging out with a friend and she saw that it posted about the latest episode and she's like, oh my God, not again. And because she has YouTube Premium
Oh,
and she had to go and like, okay, fine, now I'll search for it on Spotify and whatnot. And I was like, oh, wait a second, do people go for it? And she's like, yeah, Android users like to use YouTube, especially if they have YouTube Premium. It's like, why are we missing out on this? So I went and uploaded all our episodes. So
nice, nice.
first recommendation, in case you or anybody else has been held back from listening to this podcast, well, I guess you're listening to it already, but anybody else who's been held back, recommended to them that Are You Quizzing Me is now on YouTube. So go listen to it if you have YouTube Premium or you don't. Either ways, go check it out on YouTube podcasts. And the actual recommendations coming to that. The first one would be this show called Fisk. Have you seen the show Fisk, Vineet?
That reminds me of Wilson Fisk, who's supposed to be the Kingpin in Spider-Man.
Oh, no, not that. It's an Australian television comedy series.
Okay.
And it's just like, if you love the Australian accent, if you love the awkward humor, but not as awkward as Office, because Office sometimes gets a little too awkward.
Okay.
If you love that kind of feel or vibe of workplace comedy, and you love people speaking in, all right, they might, whatever my best impression of down under accent is. Fisk is a TV show that you absolutely must watch. It is hilarious. There aren't a lot of episodes. There are 12 episodes over 2 seasons. You can easily binge it very quickly. It's available on Netflix.
Nice.
So go check out Fisk. It was recommended to me by the same friend, by the way, who told me to put it up on YouTube. So 2 credits to this particular friend. Thank you, Akanksha. And the second actual recommendation is the movie Tumbad. And I had not seen this. This came out in 2018. It's back in theaters right now, at least in Mumbai. So check it out if it's in theaters in the city where you reside, or if not, check it out online. It's a Hindi language horror film. But my God, a horror film unlike any I've seen, especially in Bollywood. So worth your time. If you can digest horror, must see. Must see.
Definitely. I agree completely. So my recommendation actually is going to be a very recently released movie. It actually released just yesterday as of this recording. It is a Malayalam movie, but which I think has been released in multiple languages. You can definitely go and try and watch it. It's called, the Malayalam version of it, the name is Ajayende Rendam Moshanam, which literally translates to the second robbery conducted by Ajay. So Ajay's second robbery would be the literal translation. They have, because it's in Malayalam, it's Ajayende Rendam Moshanam, ARM, that they've shortened to ARM. So you might see posters for a movie called ARM. It's a labor of love, which is visible in every frame. It is one of the most unique movies I have seen that have come out from Malayalam cinema. It's a completely entrenched in the culture of Kerala. It's just a really, really great watch, and I would recommend to watch it in theaters if possible. So Ajayenda Randa Moshanam, which you may see as ARM in a theater near you. My second recommendation is a podcast which I've been listening to quite assiduously, and which I think is I should have probably recommended before this, but it's called The Rest is Politics US. So everybody who's listened to this podcast knows that I'm a big fan of a podcast called Empire, which is from a company called Goldhanger. So The Rest is Politics is a politics podcast, which is based from the UK, and their US version is called The Rest is Politics US, and they are currently following the Trump Kamala Harris election. So the Rest is Politics US and Agenda Randa Motionam or ARM. These are my two recommendations for this week. So that's all for this episode. Thank you all for listening in. We hope you enjoyed the show and learned something new. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to our podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us reach a wider audience and allows more people to discover and enjoy the show. We'd also love to hear from you. Feedback, suggestions, trivia. You can send us questions that you want asked on the show. Just send us an email with your questions and the name of the quizmaster in the subject line to areyouquizzingme@gmail.com. You can reach us out on Instagram at Are You Quizzing Me. We have a community on subreddit, which is r/Are You Quizzing Me. And as Aditya has done, we now have a YouTube channel, or rather, our entire podcast is available on YouTube. So if you are if you're somebody who listens to podcasts or listens to a lot of audio on YouTube Premium or through YouTube Music, we are available there as well. So multiple venues for you to connect with us. So please do. And please leave us a review, a 5-star review, and subscribe to us. That way, we'll make it gives it satisfies our need for validation as well. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more episodes with you in the future. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great day.
I thought I was the vain insecure one, but yes, Vineet is part of this as well.
Yeah.
Please give us a 5-star rating. Actually, I wanted to add this for a while now. If you like the podcast, the best way for a podcast to grow, apart from the ways Vineet has mentioned, is to recommend it to someone.
Yeah.
If you like it, if you think any of the trivia that we mentioned or the kind of stuff we talk about is something a friend would enjoy, a family member would enjoy, or an enemy would enjoy, please send it to them as a sign of peace that you want to make friends with them again, because podcast is the best way to make friends, as Vineet and I can attest to.
Yeah.
So, send it to somebody and see you guys next week.